Godzilla vs. Kong, Batman vs. Superman, and Glass vs. Unbreakable are just some examples of movie crossovers, but there are actually a number of others that almost happened. So in this video, I'm going to go through them, explain what they were going to be about, and why they were cancelled. Before Batman vs. Superman, he almost fought Godzilla. Back when Adam West was Batman and Godzilla was a man in a suit, the two production companies behind each of these properties were in talks to have the Cape Crusader come to Japan and have a run-in with Godzilla. Each studio wrote a treatment, but neither made it past the planning stage, which was said to be because Batman series creator William Dozier didn't want the crossover to be the sequel to the recently released Batman movie. This then led to too much time passing as that iteration of Batman ended. The American's 22-page treatment for the crossover is actually now stored at the University of Wyoming. The plot had a German meteorologist controlling Godzilla, threatening to destroy Japan, so Batman and the Bat family show up, blasting the monster into space. Despite not getting this movie, fans, led by Eric Elliott, adapted the concept into a 3-issue comic. And Godzilla almost crossed over with some other characters a few years after the Batman idea. 1987's The Monster Squad was planning multiple sequels, one of which would have seen the characters battle the King of the Monsters. But due to the film's disappointing box office, those sequels and crossover plans were scrapped. Fast forward to the 2010s, where the American iteration of Godzilla versed then teamed up with King Kong, but there were also hopes to bring in another franchise. The idea to merge Pacific Rim into the Monsters universe was being mapped out, but due to the financial and critical disappointment of Pacific Rim Uprising, that never happened. Personally, I think they should just do it. These Godzilla and Kong movies are already doing crazy things. I feel like they may as well add Pacific Rim to the mix in the next one.
The gravity surge must have taken out the power battery thing!
I thought 21 and 22 Jump Street was such great movies, so I was really disappointed to learn that the proposed crossover with Men in Black had been cancelled. Referred to as MIB-23, the idea was leaked in 2014 when Sony's emails were hacked, but this was officially confirmed by the studio to be in development 2 years later. Unlike the first two Jump Street movies, which were directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the next entry had the Muppets and Muppets Most Wanted director, James Bobin, signed on. Both Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum were keen for the idea, but while Tatum said it was the best script he's ever read for a third movie, Hill told the Toronto Sun in 2016 that it almost became what we were making fun of, and it's hard to maintain that joke when it's so high stakes. As for the Men in Black stars, Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, it didn't look like they were going to be a part of the movie, so presumably the story would have had Schmidt and Jenko be the agents at the MIB. Ultimately, Sony decided to keep the two universes separate, instead making Men in Black International in 2019 that didn't feature any of the characters from Jump Street. Personally, I think the appetite to see this crossover is still there, but if they do decide to make it, I think Sony should take it one step further and set it in a universe with a bunch of their IP. After Schmidt and Jenko successfully rebooted the Jump Street precinct, the MIB bring them into their headquarters, hoping they can reboot their company too. And the head of the MIB could be Brie Larson from 21 Jump Street. This leads to a montage where Schmidt and Jenko work as MIB agents, successfully bringing new light to the company. All of a sudden, other organizations hear of this. They become Charlie to the Angels, and now Charlie's Angels is back. If there's something strange in your neighborhood, who are you gonna call? Schmidt and Jenko, because they're now Ghostbusters. Why, hello Karate Kids, meet your new masters, Morton and Greg. The Demon Hunters just got 2 new members to sing a K-pop song. What time is it? Oh, that's right, it's Morbin time. The pair of them become symbolists, taking over from Robert Langdon to uncover cryptic mysteries. But they're not smart enough to figure it out, so they fail in that endeavour and it's played off as a joke. This ultimately leads to Schmidt and Jenko accidentally opening a whole bunch of Goosebumps books while trying to solve that cryptic mystery. Now all these creatures that'll give you goosebumps are causing chaos in the city. But it's okay, because swinging in to save the day is your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Oh no, he dies immediately, it was way too much for him. It's now up to Schmidt and Jenko to undo the problem they caused by bringing together all the companies they successfully rebooted. The MIB karate-busting, K-pop mobbing angels all use their unique skills required to defeat the creatures and trap them back in their books. Anyway, share this with Sony if you'd watch this movie, and let's make MIB-23 happen.
What are you talking about? What contract dispute?
The Karate Kid franchise and Rocky series may not seem like an obvious crossover idea, but they both have many similarities behind the scenes. John G. Avildsen directed the first films for each of these. Karate Kid writer Robert Mark Carmen jokingly stated that he ripped off Rocky when writing that film, and Joe Esposito's You're the Best was written for Rocky I, but was rejected in favour of Eye of the Tiger, so the song ended up in The Karate Kid. So as for the intended crossover, it made it as far as a pitch. It would have been about Rocky's son and Daniel's daughter meeting at a dojo, becoming friends before learning their parents have a shared ancestor in Italy. On top of all of that, both Mickey and Mr. Miyagi would have also been in it, but because they were each canonically dead, it would have been as ghosts. Apparently the reason for this not making it past the pitch was due to a lack of interest from Sylvester Stallone and Ralph Macchio, as they would have been more minor characters in the crossover.
Guy comes up, offers me a fight. Big deal. Wanna fight the fight? Yeah, I'll fight the big fight.
Now, this video isn't intended on talking about all the Marvel and DC crossovers that almost happened, because I've already made a video about cancelled movies for each of those studios, which you can check out in the playlist, but there are a couple of noteworthy crossovers worth mentioning. During the period of time when 20th Century Fox had X-Men, Fantastic Four, Deadpool, and Daredevil, they intended on making their own crossover with those characters, plus every other Marvel character they owned at the time. In 2010, Ashley Edward Miller and Zack Stentz were secretly hired to write the script, with the Bourne Supremacy and Bourne Ultimatum director, Paul Greengrass, eyed to take the helm. The plot of the crossover was essentially going to be the Civil War storyline. A registration act would be put forward after Johnny Storm accidentally blows up part of New York while fighting Molecule Man. This then leads to costumed heroes divided on whether to sign, leading to a battle against each other. It was also said that the post-credit scene would see the Skrulls invading Earth. So this crossover wasn't intended to be one and done, they were hoping this would be their Avengers. While Greengrass was close to signing on, he instead decided to direct Captain Phillips, putting the project on hold. Despite there not being any official reason for the crossover not moving forward, you have to remember this all occurred around 2010-2011. The Avengers wasn't released until 2012, so Fox may have seen the project as too risky without proof something like this could work or a notable director like Greengrass on board. There's also no details stating if the movie would have been a reboot or not, but it was in development just before X-Men First Class. They wouldn't have brought back this Fantastic Four cast because Chris Evans was now playing Captain America, and Ben Affleck said he never wanted to return as Daredevil. Therefore, I think it would have almost certainly been a part of a new era for Fox Marvel projects. They may have even set the film in the 1960s, because this script was being written around the same time as X-Men First Class, so it would make sense to have this cast of X-Men go up against the Fantastic Four and Daredevil, characters that would actually work really well in that era, and they proved that with First Steps. Ultimately, they ran out of time to have Daredevil appear, because in 2012 the rights for that character reverted back to Disney and Marvel Studios. But a few years later, 20th Century Fox were thinking about another crossover featuring their remaining characters. The 2015 Fantastic Four movie was intended to be set in the same universe as one of the X-Men universes, eventually teaming them up or pitting them against each other. However, due to the financial and critical doom the movie faced, that idea was scrapped. It seemed like Fox were waiting to see how Fan Four Stick did before they started heavy development on an X-Men crossover. However, we have since seen Wolverine, Deadpool, and the Human Torch in the same shot together. We just needed Daredevil. So close.
Daredevil, I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
Okay.
Another interesting Marvel crossover that almost happened was Spider-Man and the Hulk. Back when neither of these characters were CGI, the very Marvel named Peter Parker was played by Nicholas Hammond, Bill Bixby was David Banner, and Lou Ferrigno portrayed the Hulk. In 2002, Hammond stated that there were plans in 1984 to have his Spider-Man show team up with the Incredible Hulk show for a TV movie. Columbia Pictures and Universal Studios were going to co-produce the film, with Bill Bixby directing and Hammond co-writing along with Stan Lee and Ron Satloff. But according to Hammond, the project was cancelled when Lou Ferrigno was unavailable due to filming Hercules. However, Ferrigno denied this, stating he was never even contacted about the idea. Maybe the time had just passed on both these versions of the characters, and studios were looking to take them in a new direction.
Super Hulk friend!
Transformers Rise of the Beasts teased a Transformers G.I. Joe crossover, but it remains to be seen what direction Paramount is going in with each of these properties. Like the Spider-Man Sony deal, which requires the studio to begin production on a Spider-Man movie every so many years, Paramount also must begin production on a movie with G.I. Joe by 2029 or lose the rights. Now, you may be thinking that's plenty of time to make this crossover happen, but if we're specifically talking about this particular crossover they've set up, I think the likelihood of that happening is low. The reason for this is that the last 3 Transformers movies have been box office disappointments, which is why Michael Bay seems to be returning to direct the next film about robots in disguise. It's unclear if this will be a continuation, reboot, or soft reboot, but due to these box office results, Paramount may be interested in starting fresh or setting it back in the present day, seeing as though Bay's films have generally been financially successful. Now, a year after the release of Rise of the Beasts, the studio did officially confirm that they would be making the crossover, but this isn't the first time that's been said. In fact, they've announced to be working on one multiple times since 2013, and the most we've gotten is that post-credit scene. But having said all of that, I do think that whoever directs the next Transformers movie will make it a G.I. Joe crossover. 1, so Paramount can keep the rights, and 2, so it gives an additional point of interest to audiences who may be looking for something new within both these franchises. But again, I'd be surprised if this timeline is the version they're going to continue with.
What don't you think about it?
John Hughes, best known for movies like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, The Breakfast Club, and Planes, Trains and Automobiles, almost combined Jaws with National Lampoon. In 1978, Joe Dante made the film Piranha, but Universal didn't want the movie to be released because they saw it as a rip-off to their Jaws. However, Jaws director, Steven Spielberg, was actually the one who wanted it out there because he recognised it was a spoof rather than a rip-off, and because of this, Spielberg offered Dante the opportunity to make Jaws 3, Zero People. The title idea came from the publisher of National Lampoon magazine, Matty Simons, who pitched the idea as a joke, saying Jaws author Peter Benchley would walk out of his house in a bathing suit, jump into his pool, and disappear before we see a fin floating around in that pool. To Matty's surprise, the producers loved the idea and brought on John Hughes to write it. That was until creative differences occurred, when the filmmakers wanted it to be R-rated, while the producers wanted it to be family-friendly. It also seemed like Steven Spielberg was against the idea too, which is funny because it was he who wanted Dante involved in the first place. So while this idea never happened, the Jaws film series did go on to get 2 more parodies, but neither Jaws 3D nor Jaws The Revenge were intentionally spoofs, unlike National Lampoon's idea.
You're gonna need a bigger
But
Blade is a half vampire hunter, Underworld Selene is a full vampire werewolf hunter, and the pair almost shared the same screen together. Well, not really. In 2016, Selene actor Kate Beckinsale said that there were plans for the next movie, Movie 6, to be an Underworld Blade crossover. They went to Marvel Studios but were denied as they had other plans with Blade. This is kinda understandable. When I first heard about this crossover attempt, my assumption was that they were trying to get it made in the early 2000s, when New Line Cinema had Blade. But to try and cross over with the franchise in the mid-2010s, when Marvel had just finished Phase 2 of their cinematic universe, I can see why it would make sense for the superhero studio to turn down the proposal. Interestingly though, Selene is actually based on a Marvel character. Underworld co-creator Kevin Grevioux revealed she was inspired by the X-Men villain Selene Gallio. But Blade wasn't the only franchise Underworld tried to merge universes with. This same co-creator of Underworld also co-created the 2014 adaptation of Frankenstein. Kev revealed that he wrote an end credit scene for the film where Adam Frankenstein and Selene would meet up. Lakeshore Entertainment did produce both these pictures, but it was ultimately determined that I, Frankenstein should be its own thing. Though when they say own thing, I think they were hoping it would be its own franchise. Unfortunately for fans of this film, I don't think it's getting a second movie.
God will surely damn you.
He already did.
If I asked you what franchise Die Hard almost crossed over with, I reckon most people wouldn't be able to guess it within 24 tries, because the answer is the TV show 24. Back in 2010, the show was coming to an end, and 20th Century Fox wanted to cap it off with a theatrical movie. And because the studio had the rights to both 24 and Die Hard, an idea was pitched where Jack Bauer would team up with John McClane to take down an evil organization. This would have been the 5th Die Hard movie, and titled Die Hard 24/7. Justin Long, who was in Live Free or Die Hard, said that a script was written, but apparently Jack Bauer actor Kiefer Sutherland wanted a solo film instead. In the end, that solo film never happened, and the 5th Die Hard movie ended up being A Good Day to Die Hard, which supposedly used some of those Die Hard 24/7 ideas.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother...
Like with Pixar, there are fan theories to indicate all of Quentin Tarantino's films are set within the same universe, or are a movie within that universe. An example of this is Vic Vega, aka Mr. Blunt from Reservoir Dogs, being the brother of Vincent Vega from Pulp Fiction. Tarantino talked about the possibility of making a prequel with the siblings in a film titled Double V Vega. Michael Madsen, who played Vic, said Tarantino had spoken to him about the idea, where the brothers would be released from different prisons and reuniting at a club in Amsterdam. Ultimately, the director went on to do other projects, and eventually too much time passed. As this would have been a prequel, the only way to make this happen is to recast or use de-aging technology.
You gotta make some phone calls. You gotta call some people.
There are a bunch of horror crossovers that almost happened. Hellraiser's Pinhead would have come up against Halloween's Michael Myers. In the early 2000s, Dave Parker, who makes behind-the-scenes videos for movies, pitched the idea to the studio, editing together a trailer using footage from both these franchises. According to Parker, the idea, titled Halloween, would have seen the lament configuration be found in the walls of Michael Myers' house. Myers and Pinhead would fight over it, even taking a journey to hell. It's unclear why this movie ended up there too, but Pinhead actor Doug Bradley said it was close to happening, with talks that Hellraiser creator Clive Barker would be writing the script and Halloween co-creator John Carpenter directing it. But that's not the only Hellraiser and Halloween crossover proposed over the years. Around the same time, Bob Weinstein pitched an idea to Kevin Smith to have his Jay and Silent Bob be in the same movie together as those horror franchises. Smith considered the concept, but even after Ben Affleck told him to do it, Kev didn't think those characters would exist in the same world as Jay and Silent Bob, so went on to make Jersey Girl with Affleck instead. Another horror pairing that almost happened was Candyman and Leprechaun. In the early 2000s, a script was written and given to Candyman actor Tony Todd, but didn't like the idea, stating he cared too much about the character and thought it would be a disservice to both Candyman and Leprechaun, so that's where it ended, and those plot details were never revealed. Continuing in this genre, Evil Dead started out with Bruce Campbell in the lead as Ash Williams. 3 decades later, the franchise was rebooted with Jane Levy in the lead as Mia Allen. Initially intended to be its own universe, the post-credit scene teased Ash. Then Evil Dead creator Sam Raimi suggested the possibility to have the pair cross over in a future movie. However, this idea was ultimately scrapped in favour of the Ash vs Evil Dead TV show, which just featured Bruce Campbell's character. And this links to the next cancel crossover, where Ash would be trying to take down Freddy and Jason. Despite the filmmakers and actors from each of the franchises loving the idea, the problem was they couldn't all agree on the direction. With there now being 3 major characters to consider, it seemed like no one wanted their character to lose. Producers wanted Ash to lose, and the studio didn't care who lost as long as it wasn't Freddy, because, spoiler alert, he died in Freddy vs Jason. So it was never made into a movie, but was made into a 6-issue limited series comic, where Ash defeats both Freddy and Jason. And staying with Freddy, he and Chucky almost shared the big screen together. Child's Play creator Don Mancini pitched a movie called Child's Play on Elm Street, where Chucky and Freddy would be fans of each other before ultimately battling to see who's the better slasher. The problem this time for the film not happening was that each property was owned by a different studio. So until a deal can be reached, it seems like this concept is just fanfic. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments which of these crossovers you wish was made. And don't forget to absolutely obliterate those like, hype, subscribe and share buttons. I'm just kidding. Only do it with enough force that it registers. I don't want any of you breaking whatever device you're watching this on.